Hello fanatics, welcome to a true crime. I am doing extra because it's October, we're heading into Halloween, and this crime occurred on Halloween itself. Very tragic case from a very selfish man, but I don't want to spoil it. So, let's begin. Ronald lived with his wife, Dainine, I believe that's how it's pronounced, in Deer Park in Texas, with their son Timothy and daughter Elizabeth. Ronald worked as an optician at Texas State Optical in Sharpstown, Houston. He was a deacon at the Second Baptist Church, where he sang in the choir and was in charge of the local bus program. On October 31st in 1974, Ronald took his two children trick-or-treating in a Pasadena, Texas neighborhood. Ronald's neighbor and his two children accompanied them. After visiting a home where the occupant failed to answer the door, the children grew impatient and ran ahead to the next house, while Ronald stayed behind. He eventually caught up with the group and produced 5 21-inch, which is 53 centimetres, pixie sticks. Now, us in the UK, we don't have pixie sticks, but I looked it up and it's the sherbet-filled tubes. And these particular types, they were stapled shut at the top. And I'll put a picture of both the UK version and pixie sticks, but I'll put them both up just to show you. So he produced 5 of these 21-inch pixie sticks, which he would later claim was given from the occupant of the house that hadn't opened the door. As they ran off, he's opened the door, given him some candy, and he's given it to the kids. At the end of the evening, Ronald gave each of his neighbour's 2 children a pixie stick, and one each to Timothy and Elizabeth, his two children. I don't know, Timothy is the oldest, I believe. I think he's 8 at this time. I'm not quite sure how old Elizabeth is. Upon returning home, Ronald gave the 5th pixie stick to a 10-year-old boy whom he recognised from his church. Before bed, Timothy asked to eat some of the candy he collected, and according to Ronald, he chose the pixie stick. Timothy had trouble getting the powdered candy out of the straw, so Daddy helped him and he loosened the powder. After tasting the candy, Timothy complained that it tasted bitter, so Ronald then gave his son a Kool-Aid, which again I believe is like a Capri Sun to us. I will put both up. This does come in powder though, but the ones that I saw are like Capri Sun. Either way, he gave him some juice to wash away the taste because it was bitter. Timothy immediately began to complain that his stomach hurt, and he ran to the bathroom where he was vomiting and convulsing. Ronald later claimed that he held Timothy while he was vomiting and he just went completely limp in his arms. Sadly, Timothy died en route to the hospital less than 1 hour after consuming the candy. Timothy's death from poisoned Halloween candy raised an immense fear in the community. I mean, if you think about it, all those kids that have been out trick-or-treating, all the candy they've got, if that happened in my neighbourhood, I would be binning it. Without doubt. Pixie stick or not, I'd be binning it. Numerous parents in Deer Park and the surrounding area turned in candy their children got from trick-or-treating to the police. Yeah, I would have done that too. Fearing it was laced with poison. The police didn't initially suspect Ronald of any wrongdoing until Timothy's autopsy revealed that the pixie stick he had consumed was laced with a fatal dose of potassium cyanide. 4 of the 5 pixie sticks Ronald claimed to have received were recovered by authorities from the other children, none of whom had consumed the candy. I mean, wow. Excusing poor Timothy, they were very lucky. The parents of the 5th child became hysterical when they could not locate the candy after being notified by the police. The parents rushed upstairs to find their son asleep, holding the pixie stick, and he hadn't been able to get the staple off that holds the wrapper shut, and he fell asleep, like just holding it. I mean, the angels were looking after him that day. All 5 of the pixie sticks had been opened, the top 2 inches refilled with cyanide powder and resealed with a staple. According to a pathologist who tested the pixie sticks, the candy consumed by Timothy contained enough cyanide to kill 2 adults, while the other 4 contained enough to kill 3 to 4 adults. Ronald initially told police that he couldn't remember which house he got the pixie sticks from, but police became suspicious because Ronald and his neighbour had only taken their children to homes on 2 streets because it had been raining. Their suspicions increased after learning that none of the homes they visited had given out pixie sticks. I mean, that shows even in, 70s, they are knocking on every single door saying, did you give out any candy? Was it pixie sticks? They're knocking on every single door. After walking the neighbourhood with police 3 times, Ronald led them to the home where no one had answered the door. Ronald claimed that he went back there before catching up with the group. He said the owner of the home didn't turn on any of the lights, but did crack the door open and hand him 5 pixie sticks. I mean, he couldn't remember which house it was. He couldn't remember which street it was on, but he remembered him handing him 5 pixie sticks. Not a handful, but 5. He claimed to have only seen the man's arms, which he described as, quote, hairy. The home was owned by a man named Courtney Melvin. Courtney was an air traffic controller at William P. Hobby Airport and did not get home from work until 11 p.m. on Halloween. Police ruled out him as a suspect when nearly 200 people confirmed that he had been at work. As their investigation progressed, police learned that Ronald was over $100,000, which in 2020 is $520,000, in debt, and had a history of being unable to hold a job. In the 10 years preceding the crime, Ronald held 21 jobs. That's a lot. In 10 years. Wow. At the time of his arrest, he was suspected of theft at his job at Texas State Optical and was close to being fired. His car was about to be repossessed. He had defaulted on several bank loans, and the family home had been foreclosed on. Police discovered, and this is the most damning evidence, and it's sad. Police discovered that Ronald had taken out life insurance policies on his children in the months preceding Timothy's death. In January 1974, he had taken out $10,000, which is equivalent now in 2020 to $52,476. Okay, that's excessive on an 8-year-old and a younger child. But he took out $10,000 life insurance policies on both his children. 1 month before Timothy's death, Ronald took out an additional $20,000 policies on both children, despite the objections of his life insurance agency. So they're saying, well, hang on a minute, this is a bit excessive, and no alarm bells are going off. I mean, that's now what, $30,000 per child. So he's what, 40 grand short of his $100,000 debt. Oh no, it's okay, he's covered it. In the days preceding Timothy's death, Ronald had taken out yet another $20,000 policy on each child. This is shocking. And I've seen crime shows where they go, I don't know how it works. I don't have life insurance, so actually I do it for my bank, but it's not for that amount, pretty sure. But wouldn't you go to different companies and make new policies rather than keep adding to it? I don't know, you have to tell me that. But okay, so he's taken out another $20,000 on each child. So the various policies totaled approximately $60,000. Ronald's wife maintained that she did not know about the insurance policies on her children's lives. And I can quite believe that. I can kind of believe that, because she must have been thinking, that's a bit weird. Police also learned that on the morning after Timothy's death, Ronald had called his insurance company to inquire about collecting the policies he had taken out on his son. Now, I said literally 5 minutes ago that in the days preceding Timothy's death, he had taken out yet an additional $20,000. So in the days previous, he's already thinking, okay? And then the day after Timothy has died, he's now calling up, trying to claim the money. I mean, really? After learning that Ronald had visited a chemical supply store in Houston to buy cyanide shortly before Halloween in 1974, he actually left without purchasing anything after learning the smallest amount available to purchase was £5. And I don't mean that in money, I mean that in weight. Because we're in America, remember? They don't use pounds there. But yeah, it's £5 as in weight. So that's way too much for what he needs. He only needs a scoop of that. Police began to suspect that Ronald had laced the candies with poison in an effort to kill his children, both of them, to collect their life insurance policies. They believed he gave the other children poisoned candy in an effort to cover up his crime. Police repeatedly questioned Ronald, but he maintained his innocence. Although police never discovered when or where he bought the poison, he was arrested for Timothy's murder on the 5th of November 1974. Isn't that fireworks night? Remember, the 5th of November. Wow. He was indicted on 1 count of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. Now, from my understanding, obviously being in the UK and doing these true crime stories and listening to many, many more, capital murder puts the death penalty on the table if that state has the death penalty, okay? So capital murder is premeditated, deliberate and for gain. I believe that's what makes it a capital murder case. So if he hadn't taken out the life insurance policies and he hadn't intended to kill his own child, it may not be capital murder. I'm just trying to help both sides, the American and English. Ronald entered a plea. What do you think his plea was? Of course it was. It was not guilty to all 5 counts. His trial began in Houston on the 5th of May in 1975. During the trial, a chemist who was acquainted with Ronald testified that in the summer of 1973, Ronald contacted him asking about cyanide and how much would be fatal. Ding ding ding. A chemical supply salesman also testified that he had spoken to him about how to purchase cyanide. Friends and co-workers testified that in the months before Timothy's death, he showed an, quote, unusual interest in cyanide and spoke about how much it would take to kill a person. Ronald's sister-in-law and brother-in-law testified that on the day, this is shocking, on the day of Timothy's funeral, he spoke of using the money from Timothy's insurance policy to take a long vacation. His wife rejected the claim that Timothy chose the pixie sticks, stating that Ronald had, in fact, forced him to choose the sticks. Ronald continued to maintain his innocence, and his defence, now this is ironic, okay, his defence mainly drew upon the decades-old urban legend concerning a, quote, mad poisoner, end quote, who hands out Halloween candy laced with poison or needles or candy apples with razor blades inserted. These stories have persisted despite the fact that there are no documented instances of strangers poisoning Halloween candy. And that's quite ironic because it's exactly what he did. But he wasn't a stranger to any of those kids. The case and subsequent trial garnered national attention, and the press dubbed Ronald as the Candyman. On the 3rd of June 1975, a jury took 46 minutes to find Ronald guilty of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. The jury then took 71 minutes to sentence him to death by electrocution. Shortly after he was convicted, his wife filed for divorce, and she did later remarry, and her new husband adopted her daughter Elizabeth. At the time, men sentenced to death under Texas law were confined to the Ellis 1 unit near Huntsville, Texas. According to Reverend Carol Pickett, a former chaplain who worked for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, Ronald was shunned and despised by his fellow death row inmates for killing his child and was, quote, absolutely friendless. The inmates reportedly petitioned to hold an organised demonstration on Ronald's execution date to express their hatred of him. And this, I mean, we're going back to 1975, and they don't like child killers. I mean, that hasn't changed. And his own son, that's what I can't get my head around. Or, again, for money, just like Shannon Matthews. I mean, she didn't go that far, but Ronald's first execution date was set for the 8th of August in 1980. His attorney successfully petitioned for a stay of execution. A second date was scheduled for the 25th of May 1982. That date was also postponed. Judge Michael McSpadden scheduled a third execution date for October the 31st, 1982, the 8th anniversary of the crime, and he offered to personally drive Ronald O'Brien to the death chamber. It was to have been the first time Texas executed an inmate by lethal injection. They somehow changed it, I don't know, because the jury wanted electrocution, or suggested it, however that works, but it is lethal injection. The Supreme Court delayed the date yet again to give Ronald a chance to pursue an appeal to seek a new trial. A fourth date was scheduled for March the 31st in 1984. His lawyer sought a fourth stay on the basis that lethal injection, and this angers me, on the basis that lethal injection was, quote, a cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, how about you give him some cyanide? Calm, Cindy. On the 28th of March, a federal judge rejected the request. So his date is scheduled for March 31st. On the 28th, it's rejected. So, on March the 31st in 1984, shortly after midnight, Ronald O'Brien was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit. In his final statement, Ronald maintained his innocence, stating that he felt the death penalty was wrong. He added, quote, "I forgive all, and I do mean all, those who have been involved in my death. God bless you all, and may God's best blessings be always yours." I get annoyed because he thinks a lethal injection is wrong, and he poisoned his son, and his son was in pain, vomiting, convulsing, died on the way to hospital, and he thinks that having an injection is wrong. I have to keep reminding myself that this boy is 8 years old, his own son. During the execution, a crowd of 300 demonstrators gathered outside the prison, while some yelled, "Trick or treat." Others showered anti-death penalty demonstrators with candy. Ronald O'Brien is buried in Forest Park East Cemetery in Webster, Texas. Timothy is buried in Forest Park Lawndale Cemetery in Houston. It's a very sad, that little boy died so that his dad could pay off his debts. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I thought rather fitting for our month of Halloween and gruesome true crime. I don't want to say stories because they're not. It actually happened. So, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I have been working on my Miss Havisham from Diamond Art Club. Yeah, let me know what you think of this episode. It's very, very tragic. At the end of the day, the little 8-year-old boy died, and I got a bit passionate about that. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, and let me know what you're working on. I shall see you very, very soon in another true crime episode. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like the true crime, please give me a thumbs up on the video, and I will get some more out for you guys. Stay safe out there. Bye. I hope you like my new Halloween theme too.